बोर्ड तो लेके आया था ना।
हेलो मैम,
हाँ
अब
जी
स्क्रीन
सर।
रिकॉर्डिंग ऑन हो गई है।
ओके ओके, थैंक यू।
ठीक है मैम, आप स्टार्टिंग से पढ़ाइएगा।
हाँ जी सर, ओके, थैंक यू जी। ओके, good evening students. Let's start from the beginning. Today we will be covering, अच्छा, just let me know, is the screen available? Is it visible to all of you? एक बार बस बता दो, because I'm switching between this window and the PPT window, so I just wanted to confirm from you guys.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much for the confirmation. हाँ जी, कोई
स्क्रीन
कुछ
में
कह रहा था?
छोटी।
स्क्रीन छोटी आ रही है।
हाँ जी।
ओके, 1 मिनट। अभी ठीक है?
नहीं मैम, इसमें आपका भी पोर्ट्रेट आ रहा है साथ में।
मेरा भी आ रहा है?
हाँ
अरे
जी।
1 मिनट, ये कैसे हो गया? 1 मिनट में फिर से करती हूँ। अभी आ रही? अभी ठीक है?
नहीं मैम, अभी भी ऐसी आ रही है, मतलब आप वो ना स्क्रीन छोटी हो जाती है, फिर आपका पोर्ट्रेट आ रहा है साथ में।
ओके, और किसी को भी दिक्कत हो रही है?
मैम है, बट सही है, स्पॉटलाइट पे हो आप।
मैं स्पॉटलाइट पे से हटा देती हूँ ना, तब शायद नहीं आएगा। अब ठीक है?
मैम जैसे आप ठीक है।
ओके, चलो ठीक है, लेट्स स्टार्ट। First we will last class, if you guys remember, we had started Johari window and we had just done the first area of it. Okay, so today we will continue with that and try to finish this chapter, this lesson. Okay, and in brief, if you guys can recall, I had told you about Johari window, which was developed by Mr. Joseph and Mr. Harrington. और उन्होंने अपना नाम जोड़ के इस कॉन्सेप्ट का नाम रखा था जोहारी विंडो, right? Basically, it is a tool to understand one's own perception and along with the other person's perception. Okay. So basically, this is something to, helps you in increasing interpersonal awareness and also helps in communication. And it's a very good tool to build human team trust, team relationship, and team trust. Okay. And it's also used as a very handy tool for management trainees, for leadership development, and for team building activities, right? चलो, we'll start with the four aspects. एक बार फिर से मैं वो diagram दिखा देती हूँ. This is the Johari window, which talks about any individual's four aspects or four windows, right? Where there is one which is called the arena, the other one is the blind spot, the third one is your mask or your hidden spot, and the third one is your unknown area. ठीक है? We'll try to cover all four of them one after another, right? Along with some examples. All right. Chalo, let's start now. So the first aspect of the Johari window is your open area or the public self. Now, any information pertaining to this specific area is known to the self and it is known to the others. It includes your behaviors, your attitudes, your skills, and your communication style. This area is considered the most effective area for communication because in this scenario, the information is known to you also as well as to the other person. So in that case, the communication becomes easier and more effective, right? If we talk about the managerial significance of this area, it states that it promotes transparency and trust because each and everybody knows about themselves and the person they are speaking, communicating with. So because of that, there is transparency and there is trust. It also reduces misunderstandings and it increases team collaboration, right? Now, for example, a team leader openly communicates expectations, strengths, and working style. Team members clearly understand how to interact and perform. So here, the team leader is openly and clearly communicating what he wants and what kind of whatever he expects, right? So because of that clear communication, the team members are also able to understand that what are they, what is expected of them, and what are they supposed to do. Okay, so this is the first aspect of the Johari window. Now we are moving on to the second one. Second is your blind area or the blind spot. Now, in this scenario, there is certain amount of information which is unknown to the self, but it is known to the others. There are many attributes which we may not be aware of, but our peer or whoever is communicating with us on a regular basis at a personal or professional level, they are aware of that, right? And this area basically represents your lack of self-awareness. In this scenario, the person, the self is not aware of whatever the aspects or whatever qualities, whatever virtues or whatever vices, basically whatever good or bad habits or whatever communication styles or anything, any kind of behavior, any kind of skill that they have, they are unaware of it, but the others around us are very well aware of it. Now, what the managerial significance for this one is that it can create communication barriers, right? And how does it do that? We'll understand with the example. And also, it may damage the relationships if the problem is not addressed at the right time. Now, for example, here it's given that a manager is unaware that their tone sounds sarcastic, but the team members perceive it as disrespectful. So in this scenario, what happens is that a manager's tone is very sarcastic. उसको ताना मारने की बहुत आदत है. अपने टीम मेंबर से कोई भी अगर बात करनी है, अगर उनको किसी इंप्रूवमेंट के लिए एनकरेज करना है, तो वो पहले ताना मार के ही बात करता है, राइट? तो उस वजह से क्या होता है कि बहुत सारे टीम मेंबर्स हैं जिनको शायद वो तरीका नापसंद आए, राइट? सो इस केस में क्या है कि मैनेजर को नहीं पता कि उसका ये जो ताना मारने का तरीका है वो नेगेटिवली परसीव किया जा रहा है, राइट? एंड जो टीम मेंबर्स हैं, बिकॉज है तो मैनेजर सीनियर, तो उसको वो कम्युनिकेट भी नहीं कर पाते हैं. सो इन दिस सिनेरियो, what is happening is that because of an aspect that the manager is not aware of, it is leading to a communication barrier, and it is also hindering the growth and progress. Okay, now what can be the improvement strategy for this window? One should always seek feedback, right? One should always look for answers, or one should rather look for one should talk to others around, everybody around them, that ki acha theek hai, was whatever I said, did it come out as rude, or whatever it was, that did it come off as something could be condescending, मतलब ऐसा कुछ तो नहीं बोल दिया मैंने जिससे आपको नीचा लगा हो या कुछ भी. Basically, इन दिस सिनेरियो ओपन कम्युनिकेशन वर्क्स. जब आप क्लियरली खुल के बात करते हो, तो आप कुछ ना, अगर कुछ भी आपने कभी नोटिस किया होगा अपने नॉर्मल लाइफ में भी, अगर कभी आप चीजें कुछ बोल जाते हो, आपको शायद बाद में कई बार रियलाइज होता है कि हाँ, मुझे ऐसे नहीं बोलना चाहिए था, ऐसा नहीं, ऐसा शायद नहीं करना चाहिए था. तो इस सिनेरियो में क्या होता है कि अगर हम जो अपना फीडबैक हम सामने वाले से ले रहे हैं, उस सिनेरियो में हमें पता चल जाता है कि अच्छा ठीक है, कहीं मैंने शायद कुछ गलत बोल दिया, अगर हमें रियलाइज हो जाए तो ये जो एरिया है, इसमें हमें अपनी खामियां या कोई भी चीज हो, अच्छी भी हो सकती है, बुरी हो सकती है, हमें नहीं पता होता, बट सामने वाली कोई चीज पता होती है. ओके, एंड दिस, आफ्टर दिस कम्स द थर्ड वन, which is called the hidden area or the private self, right? In this window, the information is known to us ourself, but it is unknown to the others, right? It could be your personal feelings, it could be any kind of fear that you have, any kind of intention, hopefully good intention, and sensitive information, right? So here there is a lot of secrecy, due to which it can reduce the trust, right? And selective disclosure may build stronger relationships. So in this scenario, it can work both ways, right? If there is a lot of secrecy, if you do not open up to the person around you, do not open up to the people around you, it can reduce your stress. Reduce the trust that you have with others. But also, it can be that if you disclose them things about yourself selectively, then it might lead to building better and stronger relationships, right? So, for example, here an employee hides job satisfaction due to fear of negative appraisal, leading to reduced engagement, right? So, what happens that in this scenario, that the employee is not very happy with the current scenario or with the current work profile that he has. So, but he's not able to, communicate the same, thinking that the consequence of that may be that I will not get the promotion. If I say anything bad, So in that case, he's just keeping things to himself or herself, which again leads to reduced engagement, basically, which leads to reduced communication. And when the communication reduces, trust factor also goes into the deficit. Trust भी कम हो जाता है. ठीक है? So far so good. I hope किसी को कोई doubt नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है. Okay. I'm hoping कि सही है. Okay, great. Chalo, we'll move on to the fourth one, which is the unknown area, and that is the dark self. Now, in this scenario, the information is unknown to us also, it is unknown to the others also. Nobody can perceive what we have, any feature, any attribute, and the we nobody can perceive that, and we also do not know about that. Now, it could include your any hidden talent, any untapped potential, or any unrecognized behavior. ठीक है, कोई हिडन टैलेंट हो सकता है, कोई ऐसी चीज जो आपने आज तक कभी की नहीं हो, ना आपको पता हो, ना आपने कभी बिकॉज आपने कभी किया नहीं है, तो बाकी लोग भी उस पर कोई कमेंट नहीं कर सकते, राइट? नाउ व्हाट इज द मैनेजरियल सिग्निफिकेंस ऑफ दिस? नाउ दिस एरिया बिकम्स योर space for growth and development, because there is sorry. So what happens in this scenario is that this is an area for growth and development, because here there are a lot of areas, there are a lot of attributes that haven't been explored yet. So here what one can do is that one can explore that area. Okay. Now how can that be explored is through your training, new experiences, or your feedback. Now, for example, an employee discovers leadership ability only after being assigned a leadership project role. तो इस केस में क्या हुआ कि एक एम्प्लॉय ने आज तक कभी कोई प्रोजेक्ट ऐसा लिया नहीं था. He had not or she had not taken up any project which was about, him or her spearheading that, or him or her leading that project. So for the first time, an employee takes up a project where he or she is appointed as the leader, and he or she they have to guide the whole project and take control of it. Now, in doing so, they realize that they have a potential of being a good leader, right? And not just him, but along with his or her other group members also, they also realize that, okay, this employee, so and so employee X is a quite good leader. He can actually take good initiatives. He can actually get the work done. So this is something which comes in focus. It comes into spotlight for everybody, right? So this is known as your unknown area, or the dark self, where there's a lot of scope for growth and development. ठीक है, चार विंडोज है, they're very easy to understand. सारे परम्यूटेशन कॉम्बिनेशन बना के बिठा के बन रहे हैं ये. ठीक है. Now we'll move on to the next part of it. Now here I'll try to give you an example where we try to explain. I try to explain you about all the four aspects. Okay. Now, what are the key principles of a Johari window? इसमें in case में क्या करना है? When you have already there's an open area, one has to increase that area, right? And how do you increase that? You improve your communication, right? The blind area, where it is unknown to you but it is known to others. ठीक है? In that case, you can make it better. You can reduce that blind area through feedback. You can ask people that however you are communicating, however you are behaving, is it coming off as positive or negative, right? So that can be reduced through feedback, right? And how do we reduce the hidden area? That is through self-disclosure. That is through us diverging or sharing information, obviously selective information. Nobody's asking you to share all the secrets that you hold in your heart or hold inside your behavior. So, meaning here that through calculated and selective self-disclosure, one can reduce the hidden area also. And how does one explore the unknown area? That is through your learning and experience, right? Now let's see for an example here. In a project team, members openly share ideas. So that becomes the aspect of your open area window, right? Feedback sessions reduce the blind spots. So when there are feedbacks given that, okay, this idea was good, that idea was not good. So in that scenario, the blind area also gets reduced, right? Team bonding activities encourage sharing. So when there are team bonding activities happening, people tend to share maybe if they have any kind of dissatisfaction towards the workplace or something they found to be very interesting and something good for them. So in that scenario, it reduces your hidden area. And when new responsibilities or new job roles are assigned, then that's how your hidden potential is revealed and unknown area is explored, right? So what happens eventually is that it leads to high trust, better coordination and improved performance. ठीक है, तो जोहारी विंडो को अगर हम इस तरह से अप्लाई करें अपने प्रोफेशनल सेटअप में, तो इट कैन बी वेरी हेल्पफुल for not only just us as an individual, but the whole group that we are part of, right? So in the end, I would just like to say that Johari window is a very powerful tool for enhancing your self-awareness and interpersonal effectiveness. By expanding the open area and reducing the hidden and blind areas, individuals can improve communication, build trust, and strengthen potential professional relationships, right? In managerial context, it plays a very major role or a critical role for your team development, leadership effectiveness, and your organizational success, right? Okay, with this we are done with the Johari window. Does anybody have any query or anything they would like to ask or share about it? Okay, no problem. I'll just move ahead. So there was this one activity which I wanted to do with you guys, but maybe we can leave it for the later part of our class. We can circle back to this activity once maybe when I'm done with this lesson, right? Okay, guys?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Chalo, moving on now. So let me come back to the lessons overview that we have done till the Johari window today. We'll try to finish the feedback process, okay? And after that, if time permits, I would like to start with the third lesson, right? Otherwise, we'll continue in the next class, right? Now let's talk about feedback process. ठीक है? Feedback process से आपको, I mean, एक fair idea मिल गया ना what we are exactly talking about. Feedback basically is again a response to something, right? Feedback is a technical term for a response to something or as a reply to something. That is how feedback process works. Now it is very important in a group setup, okay? And we'll see how it works, right? Feedback basically refers to the response or reaction given by the receiver to the sender's message in a communication process, right? It completes your communications cycle and it also ensures that the message is correctly understood. It helps in identifying the distortion or the misinterpretation, right? Without feedback, communication remains incomplete and ineffective, right? So, in managerial communication, feedback is not optional. It is structural to decision making and coordination, right? So, any response that we give out, any kind of feedback that we talk of, it leads to the structure. It builds the structure of the decision making and the coordination that we are talking about here in a managerial setup, right? Communication cycle के बारे में वैसे आप लोगों ने पढ़ा है कभी? Have you guys ever come across the communication cycle and how that works? Anybody? Have you come across the concept of the communication cycle? No?
मैम सेंडर रिसीवर होता है उसमें.
हाँ, exactly. Yes, Aditi. So basically हम एकदम सही बोल रहे हैं आप. So basically in feedback process we will talk about the feedback जो हमारा पूरा communication cycle होता है उसका जो feedback aspect है उसके बारे में बात करेंगे. Okay? चलो let's start. Now what is the nature and the types of feedback? There are a lot of categories of feedback process in a in a professional setup, right? We'll try to cover them one after another. Okay, so right now we are talking about the different types of feedback. First one is the feedback which is based on the nature, right? First one is in that it is your positive feedback and your negative feedback. So positive feedback is basically it's reinforcing the desirable behavior. It is reinforcing the expected behavior, right? It encourages performance continuity. It talks about it sort of uplifts you and talks encourages you to perform better, right? And this kind of feedback also builds your morale and your motivation, right? This is one aspect of the feedback that is nature based, right? Now, moving on to the second one, which is your negative feedback. Here, it is all about pointing out errors or inefficiencies. It aims at correction and improvement, and it should be constructive, not destructive. So positive is all good, good in all positive manner, good manner. I mean, it's all very good and happening, happy kind of feedback response that we get. Negative feedback is mostly about pointing out our, drawbacks or how can we improve, right? And but one should also keep in mind that negative feedback, although it is called negative, it should be constructive in nature and not destructive. By destructive, I mean a feedback that doesn't pull down the morale of the person or makes them feel less motivated. It should be given in such a way that they feel ki, okay, I can do better. Now let's see the example here. Poorly delivered negative feedback can damage relationships, whereas well-framed feedback can enhance performance. So if whenever you give any sort of feedback, whenever you are giving any kind of response to someone, even if it is the case of correcting them, it is always suggested that you respond in such a way that they feel motivated and not discouraged because of that feedback, right? Now, the second version. The second version is based on the mode. In what mode are we giving the feedback? So, based on the mode, it is either viral feedback, verbal feedback, or non-verbal feedback. Like your verbal feedback can be your meetings, presentations, emails, any kind of review. Non-verbal feedback is the one which you give through your face, through your hand gestures, or through your expressions, right? Through your body language, which is either nodding or eye contact, or through your tone, posture, or your silence. Now, to understand this better, let's just go through this example, right? For example, now here, during a performance review meeting, a team leader evaluates an employee's project work, right? So the manager says that your analysis in the report was very detailed and insightful. However, I noticed that the deadlines were not consistently met. Going forward, I would like you to focus more on time management, right? So basically, what he did was that he gave a very positive feedback, right? He gave a very positive feedback, but he also pointed out the negative feedback, which was the lack of time management, right? So in this case, the verbal feedback, it was very clear, it was very structured, and it was constructive in nature, the negative one, right? Now, this was about the verbal feedback, right? When we come down to the non-verbal feedback, here the manager maintains steady eye contact, that okay, nods slightly while appreciating the work, uses a calm and supportive tone, and keeps an open posture, which is leaning slightly forward and being attentive. So here in this scenario, when he was giving both negative and positive feedback, he used his verbal response, but along with that, he also used his body posture, he used his eye contact, he used his tone, and he used his posture to convey whatever he wanted to say. He did not say it robotically like like a machine. He did not just read out something, but he whatever he said had an effect because he used all the components which you can use in a communication process, right? So in this case, normal feedback, it reinforced sincerity, support, and engagement. So when the manager spoke like this, it showed that, okay, he means when he's giving the positive feedback, and he also means it when he's giving the negative feedback. And when he's saying that uh, I would like you to focus more on the deadlines and all that. He's trying to show that, okay, I understand what you've done, but now going forward, I would also like you to do so and so and whatever the work is, right? So this is how the feedback is understood when it is based on the mode of verbal or non-verbal form. ठीक है? Moving on, we have the third one, which is based on the source, right? Now, based on the source is can be again of two types. It is your internal feedback and your external feedback, right? Internal feedback is basically your own self-evaluation, self-reflection, right? And it is again linked with your level of emotional intelligence and your level of self-awareness. External feedback हो गया आपका whatever, whichever you get from your people around you, be it your manager, be it your peers, be it your customers. Okay, understand this also through an example. Now, for example, a sales executive in a company completes a client presentation but fails to close the deal. Now, what happens is that for external feedback, meeting के बाद, the manager says that your product knowledge was strong, but your closing pitch lacked persuasion. The client also mentions that the presentation was informative, but it didn't clearly highlight the value for us. Now, this is your external feedback. This is coming from the manager, this is coming from the client, and it is giving you factual insights. It is telling you where did you go wrong factually, presentation wise. Now, when it comes to internal feedback, the sales executive himself, he thinks that maybe I focused too much on the features rather than telling them about the benefits. Okay. And maybe he should have asked more questions to understand the client what they needed. Right. So in this scenario, the internal feedback involving self-analysis was it involved your self-analysis, it involved your emotional intelligence, and it also talked about your self-awareness. ठीक है, तो इस सिनेरियो में दोनों चीजें हुई, इंटरनल फीडबैक भी था और एक्सटर्नल फीडबैक भी था, राइट? तो उससे क्या हुआ कि जो सेल्स एग्जेक्टिव है उसको बाहर वालों ने भी बताया कि उसने गड़बड़ी क्या की, एंड थ्रू दैट फीडबैक ही वाज इंटरनली आल्सो एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड वेयर ही went wrong, right? Now your next feedback is your timing based, right? It is of three parts. It has three parts. One is your immediate feedback, second is your delayed feedback, and the third is your feed forward feedback, right? Immediate feedback is the one which you give instantly after the communication, right? You respond instantly, and it is useful in operational tasks. When you're working on something physically, it is very useful there. It is much needed there, right? Delayed feedback. Now, this is given after analysis and reflection, and it is very common in performance appraisals, right? Feed forward is your future oriented feedback or suggestion, and it focuses on improving rather than, correcting the past mistakes. It rather focuses on improving what you can do better in the future rather than what you did in the past. Let's understand this through an example now. Again, a project manager supervises a team working on a client presentation for a high stakes pitch. Okay. Now, what is the immediate feedback in this case? During the rehearsal meeting, the manager notices an issue and says, your slide content is strong, but you're reading directly from the screen. Try maintaining eye contact with the audience. ठीक है, this was your instant feedback, right? उसी वक्त बताया गया, उसी वक्त करेक्ट हो सकता है, right? And this is used mostly, immediate feedback is mostly used when somebody is actually working on something already and needs any kind of improvement, right? Now, the next one is your delayed feedback, which becomes your post-performance evaluation. Now, after the final client presentation, वो तो पिछला वाला तो immediate feedback rehearsal presentation के time का था. Now, this one is about your delayed feedback. So, after the final client presentation, the manager conducts a review meeting and says, overall, the presentation was well structured and engaging. However, the time management could have been better, especially during the Q&A session. Now, this one was given after the presentation, right? Involved some sort of analysis, some sort of reflection, right? This was, and this kind of feedback is more comprehensive and structured because बंदा बहुत time के बाद सोच के बता रहा है, right? And this one usually works for your performance appraisals or post-project reviews, right? So this one is your timing-based feedback. And then, sorry, let me cover the third aspect also, which is the feed forward, which is your future oriented guidance, right? Here, the manager again says that for future presentations, you can allocate fixed time slots for each section and anticipate possible client questions in advance. तो भाई पहले उसको feedback मिला कि maybe he's not reading properly, he's not making eye contact with his clients or whoever. So that was the immediate feedback. After that, he was given a post feedback that is which was filled with analysis and everything. Now the third one here is about that when you give this feedback, this is basically giving a suggestion for the future for future reference, right? And it helps in correcting a person's past mistakes or basically developing it's sort of developing their skills in the long run. Okay, so this one was about your uh, timing based feedback, which is the all three: immediate, delayed, and your feed forward. आप इसको you might feel a bit hassled considering there's so many types. So basically, whatever content was given there, I've tried to put it in different categories for you to understand better along with the examples. Okay. Anybody wants to say something, add something? No? Are we good? Okay, chalo, I'll continue further then. Right, so the earlier one was your based on timing, right? Now this one is based on your formality, the level of formal or informal setup there is, right? Now, this one is called your low monitored feedback, right? And the second one is called your highly monitored feedback, right? This is depending on the level of formality that one has, right? Now, low monitored feedback is usually spontaneous, informal, and it is natural reaction, right? It can be linked to your immediate feedback as well in certain cases. Second one is your highly monitored feedback, which is a structured, planned, and often a documented feedback. It is used in corporate reviews and evaluations. Now, let's understand this through an example. So, during a brainstorming session, a colleague casually says, "This ad concept looks creative, but maybe the tagline could be more catchy." Now, this kind of feedback was delivered instantly and it was informal, right? Immediate feedback था और informal था, but ज़रूरी नहीं है कि immediate और informal साथ में चले. But usually, I mean, that is the case, right? So you can club it, but okay, you can use it like that. ठीक है? So it was an instant and it was an informal feedback, right? The colleague did not really sit and think over it and took time, right? He or she did not analyze it. So this one is not a your this thing formal feedback, right? There was no planning for it. It was not documented or anything or written down in any any documented setup, right? Now this kind of feedback reflects a natural or a real time reaction. So when you give this kind of feedback, one tends to understand that okay, this whatever the response or feedback the person is giving, it is at a very natural level and it is pertaining to my current situation, right? Now this kind of feedback encourages open communication, right? It promotes your quick idea refinement. Whatever you are going through, if you get feedback that instant, you can make it better. And it also builds a collaborative environment, right? Now, when we talk about the formal structure or formal type of feedback, तो उस केस में ये scenario होता है कि when the campaign was launched, the manager conducts a formal review and he says that based on the campaign analytics, the engagement rate increased by 15%, but conversion rates remain below target. A detailed report has been prepared highlighting areas for improvement in audience targeting and content strategy. Now, this kind of feedback happened in a formal meeting. This had a lot of data, reports, and it was obviously documented in the minutes of the meeting, right? And this was a very carefully planned and structured response. Okay, so what does this, I mean, this kind of feedback is also important. What does this kind of feedback do is that it helps in supporting, helps in your strategic decision making. When you give this kind of data oriented and, very fact-based feedback, then it helps in a correct decision making, right? It also ensures accountability and performance tracking because it is documented, so that leads to accountability and performance tracking, right? And it is mostly used for corporate evaluations and audits. तो audits में जो भी feedback आपका होता है, जो भी आपको मिलता है, that is your formal formal kind of feedback, right? ठीक है जी. So this was about the types, right? Now feedback can be in any form. Is this diagram visible to all of you? थोड़ा छोटा हो गया है. Okay, I'm guessing that's a yes. So basically what I'm trying to tell you here that there can be various forms of feedback, right? It can be in a response form as it's given here also in the diagram. It can be in the form of an idea. It can be an evaluation. It can be a result based or a performance based feedback, right? So there are basically all these kind of various forms of feedback that one tends to get in a professional setup, right? First is your response or comment. Second could be your advice or suggestion. Third is your evaluation, which is your, rating, the survey, or maybe a KPI based review that you do. And after that, you have your result based feedback, which is based on the outcome of performance which one does, right? Or it could be any kind of idea or recommendation. But in any organization, feedback is increasingly data driven, right? In forms of analytics, dashboards, or surveys. So basically, in an organizational setup, feedback is usually based full of data, right? Whenever one gives a feedback, one tries to support it with some kind of data or some kind of, factual information so that whatever he or she is trying to convey, it turns out to be, strong. It turns out to be having a foothold that, okay, the person, whatever is saying is backed by data or any kind of, fact. And one others have to agree to it, others have to understand it, right? चलो, moving on, we are talking about a feedback process. ठीक है, यहाँ पे like Aditi had said, communication cycle एक चीज होती है, right? यहाँ पे there is a sender, right, who encodes the message. Then the message is sent. Then it is further sent to the receiver, who decodes that message. Then that receiver, when again responds to that particular message, and that's where the role of your feedback comes. Okay. Right. Chalo. Now we'll just talk about the feedback process in brief. Okay. The feedback process is a cyclical and continuous process, right? It is in a full circle which goes on and on and on as long as we are talking and we do not disengage, right? It has certain stages. First is the sender. First stage is that of the sender who initiates the communication, right? After that comes your just a minute. After that comes your encoding, right? This is all about converting your whatever ideas you had, whatever thought process you had. It comes into changing that thought process into a message form, right? Then comes your message, basically transmitting that message to the receiver. I mean, in whatever the message is. Now, the mode of that message could be anything. It could be through a meeting, through your email, or through any report, right? Now, we're talking about this in a professional setup, right? Then comes your receiver. So the receiver tries to interpret that message, right? And then further decodes it, basically understands the meaning. Now, during this whole process of the communication cycle, there can be noise. Noise means any kind of interruption or distortion. Now, it can be either physical, it can be psychological, or it can be semantic. Physical meaning there is any physical disturbance while trying to send a message, while having a meeting, there is some uh, internet problem, or some noise glitch happening, so that becomes your physical distortion or physical noise. And apart from that, it could be psychological also, that say for example there is a meeting going on, and the presenter or whosoever is assigned that meeting, supposed to carry forward that meeting, he or she may not be in the right state of mind. He or she may be through some kind of, under some stress, or maybe through some kind of problem, going through something. So because of that, there comes the psychological noise, and he or she is not able to communicate. Semantics becomes your language problem, language barrier, that when you're trying to communicate something, but due to lack of certain, you know, because you're not well aware of the language that you're speaking in, so you are not able to convey the message properly, right? And after noise comes the feedback. That is the response, receiver's response back to the sender. Okay? So this full cycle, going from the sender to the receiver, then coming back to the sender, the feedback coming back to the sender becomes your feedback loop, right? And this continuously going on ensures that there is communication happening and there is effective communication happening. Okay. Now, what is the role of noise in feedback? What does really noise do? मैंने आपको इसके पहले भी बता दिया है. Any kind of disturbance, any kind of, hindrance in communication becomes your noise, right? I've already mentioned your physical one, psychological also, semantic also. So basically, what does the feedback do in this case, in this scenario? It helps in detecting and correcting the noise-induced distortions. So feedback has another role to play, that not just responding to the message that is coming from the sender, but it is also, trying to detect or correct the problem, right? Because remember right now when I was starting the class, when I began the class, you told me how you could not, you could see my image also and the whole screen was small. So that was you all giving me feedback and letting me know that, okay, there is this problem happening. So when when I heard that problem, I got the point that, okay, understood. Maybe this is the issue. So I tried to resolve that issue then and there, and I tried to correct it so that the class goes on easily and without any trouble. Okay, so that's how noise correction works through feedback. Okay, chalo. Now, what is the importance of feedback process? Why do we need it? Okay, why is it so important? Why is it, in any managerial setup? Why is it so helpful? Why is the need to respond that becomes so important, right? So let's focus on all the features one by one. First is to enhance your self-awareness, right? It aligns self-perception with others' perception. Okay. And also links with your Johari window, right? When we talk about enhancing self-awareness, then we can also bring in the concept of Johari window. Okay. Here we can say that we can turn our blind areas into open areas, right? If we are self-aware of whatever it is happening. Okay. And through this we can also somehow make the communication better, right? Once we start to understand ourselves and we are able to understand those around us better, it makes us aware of ourselves also and the others also. And it also leads to opening up, reducing the blind area and increasing the open area, right? That's your first aspect. Second is that it improves communication effectiveness. So when you get proper feedback, you understand, okay, you understand what should I say next, how should I say it, right? So that ensures your clarity and accuracy. And it also reduces misunderstandings, right? So when you are always in a constant state of communication with people around you, there is very less of misunderstandings, unless, your factor aa jata hai. But usually it is suggested that when there is constant communication cycle happening, that leads to reduction of misunderstandings, right? So whenever you get the feedback, you understand, okay, this is where I went wrong, or okay, maybe the person didn't mean to say something else, didn't mean to say that, didn't mean to say this. So this again helps in your effective communication. It strengthens your interpersonal relationship also, right? So in this scenario, it builds trust and transparency, and it also encourages open dialogue. So when there is open feedback, when there is someone who is always ready to give you whatever they feel or whatever they think of, when ready to give you an advice, that also leads in building of trust and transparency, and it also leads to open dialogue. Okay. Fourth is your facilitates performance improvement. Feedback, again, it just identifies your gaps, whatever drawbacks that you have. It also focuses on your areas of development. and it supports continuous learning. Again, when you're constantly, when you're getting a response, be it a positive, be it a negative, whatever kind of response that you're getting, it helps you identify where am I going wrong. It helps you identify that, okay, what areas are there that I need to work on. So this leads to identifying and developing the lacking areas, and also you are in the process of continuously learning. Okay. Feedback process also promotes organization harmony, or because there is constant feedback happening, people are talking to each other, they are letting them know how they feel and what they feel, so that results in less of conflicts. That doesn't sort of make things bad, but rather makes it better. And it also encourages a collaborative environment. So when you're in constant communication, it helps in understanding that where, I mean, it helps in making the group more together, and it binds but basically communication, or the feedback process sort of becomes the binding glue that keeps the whole organization together, right? Supports group goal achievement. It aligns your expectations and ensures timely corrections. हमने group setup की बात की थी last chapter में, so let's keep that scenario in mind and think that any kind of feedback process that we give and that we get, it helps in letting us know ki, okay, this is the role of the group, this is what the group is supposed to do, and this is how they should go about it, right? And also because there is constant feedback happening, there is also scope of timely corrections, right? So these are the few aspects of why the feedback process is important. And here I will just summarize feedback for you, the feedback process. It is a two-way continuous process, and it's not a one-time activity. Now, any feedback to be effective, it has to be very specific. It has to be to the point. One has to make sure that whatever they're talking about is pertaining to that particular um, subject. It has to be very objective also. It has to be constructive also. That whatever you say has to be in good light, and it should not be in bad light. It has to be said in such a way that however you're criticizing, or however it should be constructive criticism, right? So basically, managers must balance evaluation with empathy. Feedback is an indispensable component. We cannot do away with it. It is a very important part in any kind of communication that further ensures there is clarity, there is accuracy, and there is effectiveness. It operates at a continuous loop. Okay? It enables the individuals and organizations to adapt. So when we talk about the communication process and the feedback process, it's a never ending thing that's happening. So in this scenario, us as an individual and a organization as a group is also able to, because of its continuous process happening, they are able to adapt it, they're able to improve it, and they're able to achieve desired outcomes because of it, right? So in modern management, feedback is not merely reactive, but also proactive in the form of feed forward, making it a strategic tool for growth and development, right? So in management terms, if we see in today's management terms, if we see, feedback is not just about, giving out responses, doling out responses, whatever we feel, whatever we think, whatever we like, but rather it is a form in which which makes things better, which helps in making things better for the future, and for the future of the growth and development of the organization. ठीक है जी? So this was about the feedback process, right? Now, I'm giving you 5 minutes. Let's be done with that activity that I had shared. Let me circle back to that. I'll give you 5 minutes for that. 5-10 minutes. So basically, what you have to do here is that basically try to make a Johari reflection sheet. Here, just try to, write down any of your two strengths, any of your two weaknesses, and any one behavior which you may think that others may see as negatively. ठीक है? So just try writing just these down. बाकी के वो 2-3 आप मत करना. Just write down these for yourself. just self-reflect, and try focusing what would be your strengths, what would be your weaknesses, and any one thing that you think others may not like about you. Okay? Just do that. I'll give you 5-10 minutes for it, and then I'll come back and we'll discuss on it. Okay? Works for you guys? Okay, thank you so much. Just do this, take some time and do it. I'll come back in 10 minutes. Okay? Thank you. Okay. Were you all able to do this activity? Would someone like to share what they've written? Anybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So who would like to go first? Who would want to share first? Anybody who wants to share? एक ही बता दो. हाँ हाँ. Yeah. Okay, Aditi. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. My two strength is I am good listener and a problem solver, and two weakness is my difficulty in is the public speaking in English and overthinking. And the one
Okay.
behavior that may perceive negatively by others is I am very blunt when I am giving feedback to the others people.
Okay. Okay. That's great. That's great. So, Aditi, when you are talking, okay, about your strengths, that's wonderful. I mean, we don't need to work on your strength, but when you talk about your weakness, sorry, when you're talking about your weakness, क्या लगता है? I mean, do you feel, is there, I mean, have you thought of any way through which you can correct this? कभी सोचा अदिति कि ओके पब्लिक स्पीकिंग में थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम है, ठीक है, कम्युनिकेशन इश्यूज हैं, दैट्स फाइन. हाँ, बताइए, कुछ सोचा है कभी?
Ma'am, public
हम्म.
only in English, not in Hindi.
ओके, ग्रेट. चलो, इंग्लिश का ही प्रॉब्लम है, ठीक है. सो एवर थॉट ऑफ हाउ टू रेक्टिफाई दैट? एवर गिव इट अ थॉट कि
No.
ओके, ठीक है. सी Aditi, as far as your English communication skills are concerned, they can only get better if you try, if you eat in English, if you sleep in English, if you talk in English, if you think in English. This is a very basic funda. Try reading lots of newspapers, try reading good material apart from your study material. Try reading good material and try watching good material also. Any topic that fascinates you, try listening or watching any information related to that online. Do it in English. Watch good movies. That will help. And try to communicate, at least not, most part of the day, but at least take out at least 1 hour or something so that where you are just trying to converse in English only. And try writing in English as much as you can. That really helps. That is what I can give you as a suggestion. So once when you get better with your communication skills in English, तो जो public speaking वाला बोल रहे हो वो automatically better हो जाएगा. Once you get confidence at your language skills, you will automatically be confident. You will not, जो भी आपको झिझक लगती है, वो खुद ही चली जाएगी when you master that skill. ठीक है?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. और कोई? What about you, Deepu, Bharti? There's Ashit also, and there is Harinder. What about you guys? Do you guys want to share something?
मैम वीकनेस में ओवर थिंकिंग
Okay.
और स्ट्रेंथ में गुड लर्नर
Okay, great. And
एंड और ये जो बिहेवियर अदर्स में परसीव वाले में क्या होता है कभी कभी जैसे मान लो कि कोई सिचुएशन ऐसा है उसके बारे में मतलब ज्यादा नर्वस नहीं हूँ बट फेस पे ऐसा एक्सप्रेशन हुआ कि हाँ मतलब मैं बहुत ज्यादा नर्वस वगैरह हूँ.
okay. So भले ही आप अंदर से उतने नहीं हो, but expression में वो आ जाता है.
शो हो रहा है कि नहीं मतलब सामने से मतलब वो.
Okay, okay. I think ये overthinking की प्रॉब्लम सभी को है ना. हम सभी को ही है, आई थिंक ये प्रॉब्लम वीकनेस हम सबकी है ना। मैं भी बहुत ओवर थिंक करती हूँ एंड में, लेकिन उससे कुछ होता नहीं है ना। सो बेसिकली ओवर थिंकिंग के बारे में तो यही सबको मैं बोलूंगी कि इतना ओवर थिंक करो ही मत, जितनी जरूरत है उतना थिंक करो, बिकॉज ओवर थिंकिंग से कुछ नहीं मिला है आज तक, बिलीव मी कुछ नहीं मिलता है। ओवर थिंकिंग से स्ट्रेस आता है, स्ट्रेस से एंजाइटी आती है, एंजाइटी से काम और बिगड़ जाता है। एकदम कूल एंड काम रह के कुछ भी करना है, सोच लो कैसे करना है, क्या करना है, प्लानिंग कर लो। सी व्हेन यू प्लान समथिंग इन लाइफ, half your job is done. The other half is what left to work on that plan that you have made. That becomes very helpful. You will not think so much, you will become more confident. So for that I can give you this much suggestion, that's how you can work on it. Okay, anybody else who wants to share? ओके ठीक है। इस आई डोंट थिंक औरों को शायद उतना may not be that keen, which is absolutely fine. I mean, it's up to you guys. So see, with this we have finished our lesson 2. ठीक है, we are done with lesson 2. I will share the notes of the same. आप सबको lesson 1 के notes तो मिल गए थे ना? I hope all of you have received lesson 1 notes.
मेरे पास नहीं है मैम।
आपके पास नहीं है?
मैम नहीं,
सॉरी मैम, क्या बोला आपने?
मैं पूछ रही थी कि lesson 1 के notes मिल गए आप सबको?
यस मैम।
अच्छा, ओके, मिल गए हैं। ठीक है, मेरे को अपना ईमेल आईडी, दीपू अपनी ईमेल आईडी बताना आप।
चैट में
बता
कर दूं मैं?
सकते? हाँ हाँ हाँ, चैट में कर दो, बट यहाँ पे है ऑप्शन चैट में सेंड करने का?
हाँ है मैम।
ओके ग्रेट, हाँ मेरे को भेज दो, मैं आपको भेज दूंगी। और अगर किसी को नहीं मिले तो मेरे को अपनी ईमेल आईडी भेज दो, आई विल फॉरवर्ड इट। ठीक है, एंड लेट्स कम बैक टू आवर लेसन। सो वी आर डन विद लेसन 2, राइट?
मेल आईडी सेंड कर दिया मैम।
क्या कह रहे हो आप? सॉरी।
मेल आईडी सेंड कर दिया चैट में।
चैट यहाँ पे मुझे देखना पड़ेगा। ओके, मैं देख लूंगी। ठीक है,
2609@gmail.com।
आप बता ही दो, क्या कह रहे हो, फिर से बताना।
रितु रंजन,
RI
CURANJAN
हम्म
2609
टू सिक्स
2609
हम्म
@gmail.com।
Okay, great. I'll send it to you. Okay, anybody else? Like
मैम
somebody was. हाँ जी,
मुझे भी नहीं मिला था मैम नोट।
आपको भी नहीं मिला? ओके, बता दो भारती, आप भी बता दो अपनी ईमेल आईडी।
मैम भारती BHARTI
हम्म
AGG
हम्म
1117 @gmail.com।
Okay, anybody else who has not received it yet?
मैम चैट बॉक्स में भेज दिए, वैसे आप सर्च कर सकते हो।
मुझे नहीं, I can't access my chat box from here somehow. There's no option for me to access my chat box. Okay, I think maybe I'm not opening the correct window.
3 डॉट्स पे।
3 dots पे म्यूट, ये है 1 minute।
मैडम ऑप्शन एक्सेस ही नहीं दे रखा चैट का।
हाँ, चैट का ऑप्शन ही नहीं है। ओके नेवर माइंड, मैं आप दोनों को भेज दूंगी। इफ एनी ऑफ यू, आइदर ऑफ यू गाइस हैव नॉट रिसीव्ड इट, तो मेरे को बता देना, आई सेंड इट टू यू। ठीक है, नाउ वी विल बिगिन विद आवर थर्ड चैप्टर। ठीक है, लेट मी जस्ट गिव यू एन ओवरव्यू, गिव मी अ मोमेंट, आई विल शेयर द थर्ड चैप्टर PPT, just give me one moment. Okay.
मैम मैंने PDF भेज दी है लेसन 1 की चैट से।
अच्छा, मिला है क्या किसी को?
यस मैम, शो हो रहा है।
ओ वाह, मुझे नहीं दिख रहा।
मैडम चैट एक्सेस नहीं है मेरे पास भी, तो मुझे भी शो नहीं होता है।
अच्छा, कोई प्रॉब्लम। आशित, आपको वैसे मिल गया है लेसन 1 का पीपीटी?
मैडम मैंने एक क्लास तो अटेंड की थी ऑफलाइन की, पर वैसे नोट्स या पीडीएफ फॉर्म में कुछ नहीं मिला है अभी।
अच्छा, मेरे को आप अपनी ईमेल आईडी बताओ, मैं भेज दूंगी।
मैडम त्यागी
हम्म
आशित
हम्म
46@gmail.com।
Okay, okay, I'll send it across. I'll send this one also because we are done with lesson 2. I'll send this one also. Give me a day or two's time. I'll send it across. Okay, so now, guys, we'll begin with the third chapter. Okay, this one is about interpersonal trust and conflict. Okay, before I begin the third chapter, do you guys have any queries, any feedback about the previous chapter that we did? Does anybody want to share anything? Or anybody wants to discuss anything about it? The second chapter.
मैम एक चीज मुझे पूछना था कि जैसे मान लो कि फीडबैक में आपने जो बताया, मान लो
हम्म
कोई एम्प्लॉय है बट उसका मतलब काम या रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी जो भी हो, उन्हें जो प्रोजेक्ट दिया गया उन्होंने मतलब उस तरीके से नहीं किया, बट जो उनका लीडर है मतलब
हम्म
निगेटिव है, निगेटिव फीडबैक, बट उन्होंने निगेटिव फीडबैक ना देके मतलब दिया तो निगेटिव ही, लेकिन उन्होंने पॉजिटिव पे भी मतलब फोकस डाला। उन्होंने बोला कि हाँ आप अच्छी कर रहे हो, लेकिन मैं मतलब इसे बेटर कर सकते हो, इस तरीके से कर दे, तो वो कौन से फीडबैक में आएगा फिर?
वो आपका जो हमने सबसे पहला पढ़ा था, नेचर, जो था ना, नेचर ऑफ फीडबैक, पॉजिटिव
ओके।
एंड नेगेटिव फीडबैक, उसमें आ जाएगा। भले ही उन्होंने नेगेटिव मतलब पॉजिटिव ही दिया है फीडबैक, और नेगेटिव को भी ऐसे घुमा के दिया है कि वो कंस्ट्रक्टिव फीडबैक लगे, तो वो नेगेटिव पॉजिटिव नेचर ऑफ फीडबैक में आ जाता है, जो हमने इसके पहले शुरू में उस समय किया था। कहने का मतलब है, वट एवर काइंड ऑफ फीडबैक दैट यू गिव, बी इट पॉजिटिव और नेगेटिव, सी पॉजिटिव इज ऑलवेज पॉजिटिव, इट इज ऑलवेज गुड, hunky dory. I mean, it's all good vibes, positive. But when we are talking about negative feedback also should be framed or also should be given in such a manner that it does not demotivate the person that you're giving the feedback to, right? It has to be said in such a way, in such a smart way, that when you give some advice or when you give some suggestion or feedback to someone, they should take it in good spirit. They should not feel bad about it. ठीक है?
ओके मैम, थैंक यू।
ओके, थैंक यू। चलिए, वील मूव
मैम
ऑन
आप
टू द। हाँ जी, क्या कह रहे हो?
केस स्टडी कराओगे आप?
हाँ, मैं केस स्टडी भी कराऊंगी, बट probably in the next class. ठीक है, maybe we can cover for both chapter 1 and chapter 2. We can do that in the next class when we have the last half hour remaining. तब मैं करा दूं. Will that work for you guys? Okay, I think we can do that. ठीक है, I'll keep a note of that. We can do for the next class, maybe for chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'll prepare it, and जब मैं note circulate करूंगी तो वो मैं उसमें add वही case studies कर दूंगी। ठीक है। अब देखो, जैसे अदिति, हमने यहाँ पे जो एग्जाम्पल्स वगैरह अप्रोच किए ना, दे आर ऑल्सो सॉर्ट ऑफ योर केस स्टडी ओनली, बेसिकली दे आर देयर विद योर आंसर्स, राइट? बिकॉज कॉन्सेप्ट के साथ लिंक्ड है, सो दैट ऑल्सो बिकम्स सॉर्ट ऑफ केस स्टडी फॉर यू। बट आई विल ट्राई टू फ्रेम मोर केस स्टडीज पर्टेनिंग टू द कॉन्सेप्ट्स जो हम कर रहे हैं। ठीक है,
यस
चलिए।
मैम।
Okay, let's begin with our third chapter, which is interpersonal trust and conflict. Right? यहाँ पे I'll try to cover these two topics today. So this is about how any kind of interpersonal trust or interpersonal conflict works in a group, within a group, and within maybe other groups as well. ठीक है? So here we'll talk about interpersonal trust. We'll talk about the basis, the domain, and the target dimension framework. ठीक है? Of the interpersonal trust. Okay? And we will also talk about interpersonal conflict. Trust है तो conflict होगा ही. We'll speak of intra-group conflict. Intra-group conflict becomes your whatever conflict that is happening within one group. Intergroup conflicts become the kind of conflicts that happens between two or more than two groups. Okay. So now let's begin with interpersonal trust. ठीक है, Anybody understands what we mean? I mean, ये जो टॉपिक आया है interpersonal trust conflict, जैसे मैंने अभी आपको बताया. So what do you think of it? What do you understand of it? Does anybody want to share anything, or should I continue with the chapter?
मैम जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल कोई टीम लीडर है और अपने टीम मेंबर के पास किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में रखा बात को, तो मतलब उन्हें ट्रस्ट है सामने वाले पे कि वो ऐसा करेंगे,
हम्म.
मतलब उसका
Okay.
वो मतलब गलत तरीके से या कोई टीम मेंबर उसका मजाक बनाएगा, मतलब वो ट्रस्ट के साथ बता रहे हैं कि वो चीज को फॉलो करना है, मतलब
राइट. तो इस केस में आप इंटरपर्सनल ट्रस्ट की बात कर रहे हो, है ना?
यस मैम।
ओके, अब इसी कंटेक्स्ट में सोचो कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कैसे आ सकता है. जो आपने बोला वो ट्रस्ट के एस्पेक्ट से बोला. अब कॉन्फ्लिक्ट कैसे आ सकता है, कब आ सकता है? अभी जैसे आपने
कॉन्फ्लिक्ट
बोला ना. हाँ जी, हाँ
होगा
बताइए आशित.
कि भी आप ट्रस्ट कर रहे हैं किसी पे, टीम मेंबर में कर रहे हैं आपके सबऑर्डिनेट्स, और आपने कुछ काम बताया, उन्होंने वो काम को उस तरीके से नहीं किया और आपको बताया भी नहीं कि उसमें उनसे कुछ मिस्टेक हुआ है या उन्होंने गलत आपको मतलब इंफॉर्मेशन दी है, और
राइट.
अल्टीमेट उसका रिकर्शन कुछ आपको मिला है आगे से फीडबैक कि भाई ये काम गलत हुआ था, आपको एक थर्ड पर्सन पता लग रहा है जिसने उसको रिव्यू किया है बाद में इम्पैक्ट,
ओके.
मतलब
तो
सच
तब
होना एग्री नहीं, मतलब सामने वाले को बात से एग्री हम नहीं कर पाए उस टाइम पे।
आश्रित वो वर्क मोड के बारे में कहना चाह रहे हैं कि कोई काम हुआ एंड यू वर नॉट गिवन द राइट काइंड ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, या अगर किसी ने कोई पर्टिकुलर इंसान ने गलती की है, ही इज नॉट कन्वेइंग दैट आल्सो कि मैंने रिपोर्टिंग स्ट्रक्चर या कोई भी रिपोर्ट बनाया, मैंने उसमें ये मिस आउट कर दिया है, ये डेटा या डिटेल मिस कर दिया है, जिसकी वजह से पूरी रिपोर्ट इफेक्ट हो गई है. सो जो भी अब लेट्स से वो उसको अपने सीनियर को देना है, राइट? आप दिस इज व्हाट यू मीन आशित, राइट? यही कहना चाह
यस
रहे हो ना आप? करेक्ट मी
यस
इफ आई
मैम,
एम रॉन्ग.
मैं
हाँ,
नहीं नहीं
तो
जैसे मैंने
करा
जो बताया मैम जिस केस के बारे में कि जैसे टीम लीडर ने दिया, तो उसमें जैसे कैसे मतलब आपने जो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट की बात बोली, तो उसमें टीम मेंबर उनके टीम लीडर के बात से एग्री नहीं होंगे, अपने तरीके से करेंगे, वहां पे ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट पैदा हो सकता है।
करेक्ट. करेक्ट. तो ये भी एक एस्पेक्ट हो गया कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का, जो दीपू कह रही हैं, और जो आशित कह रहे हैं वो भी एक एस्पेक्ट हो गया कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का, राइट? So basically, I believe you guys have an rough idea of what we are going to cover in this lesson, right? ठीक है, चलो let's move on. Let's start. Okay. Now, in any organizational behavior, conflict is not purely dysfunctional. Okay. मतलब the concept of conflict is not something which is can be taken in a negative manner, right? It can be constructive also, it can be destructive also, right? There are functional conflicts also, there are dysfunctional conflicts as well, right? For example, constructive conflict में क्या होता है? It leads to innovation and better decisions. जब डिस्ट्रक्टिव फॉर्म आ जाता है कॉन्फ्लिक्ट का, तो इट लीड्स टू स्ट्रेस एंड रिड्यूस्ड परफॉर्मेंस. ठीक है? इन एनी परफॉर्मिंग हाई परफॉर्मिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, रादर इन anywhere, trust and conflict coexist, right? They go hand in hand. If there is trust, there can be chances of conflict, and if there is conflict, then there are chances that that conflict can be resolved and it can lead back to trust, right? So effective managers, they do not eliminate conflict, they rather channel it productively. ठीक है? Because conflict and trust both are coexistent. तो उसको किस तरह से conflict, because it is considered negative thing, तो उसको किस तरह से अपने फायदे के लिए use करे is what we will try to understand here. Okay. Now, for example, it's given here a product development team debates aggressively on features while conflicts exist. Mutual trust ensures that there will be respectful disagreement and there will be better product outcomes. So the best example of, trust and conflict coexisting, we can understand from this example is that although there is a lot of debate happening over the features of any particular product, but we can here understand that if there is any kind of disagreement happening, it has to be respectful in nature. It has to be taken with an understanding. One does not need to get personal, or one does not need to, you know, take it to their heart कि ऐसा क्यों बोल दिया वैसा क्यों बोल दिया. So that is how a conflict can also sustain. And there is also hope that because there is trust, so whatever ideas there are, people are giving to each other, that will lead to better product outcomes, right? So this is how conflicts work, right? Repeat हो गया है, sorry. चलो, सो दिस इज द इंट्रो ऑफ इट, जहां पे हम कॉन्फ्लिक्ट और ट्रस्ट दोनों की बात कर रहे हैं. नाउ मूविंग ऑन, व्हाट इज इंटरपर्सनल ट्रस्ट? ठीक है, इंटरपर्सनल ट्रस्ट, इट रेफर्स टू द विलिंगनेस ऑफ वन इंडिविजुअल व्हिच इज द ट्रस्टर to be vulnerable to the actions of another, which is the trustee, based on the expectation that the latter will act in favorable, reliable, and exploitative manner, even in the absence of complete control or monitoring. इससे हमें बेसिकली यही समझ में आ रहा है कि जो इंसान दूसरे इंसान पे भरोसा कर रहा है, ठीक है, he is being vulnerable to that person, he is opening up to that person, he is expecting कि वो इंसान जो भी behavior रखेगा या जो भी decisions रखेगा वो favorable होगा for the betterment of the goal. It will be reliable, भरोसेमंद होगा वो decision या वो action, and non-exploitative in nature होगा, मतलब वो फायदा उठाने के लिए वो decision नहीं लिया जाएगा. So this is the concept of interpersonal trust. Now, when we talk about trust reducing in management terms, it reduces the transaction cost. When we talk about the existence of trust, we can suggest that it will reduce the transaction cost, it will reduce your monitoring cost and coordination complexity. तो यहाँ पे हम ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि अगर हम interpersonal trust की बात करें तो उस वक्त क्या होता है, because there is trust between certain number of people, within a certain group, तो जब ऐसा कुछ होता है तो transaction cost, basically any kind of communication happening, or you can also say any kind of communication happening, unnecessary communication also gets cut down. One doesn't need to keep monitoring as a leader, one doesn't need to be there constantly hovering all the time on the group members कि अच्छा ये ऐसा कर रहा है वो वैसा कर रहा है, ये ऐसा बोलेगा वो वैसा बोलेगा, तो वो चीज भी घट जाती है, मॉनिटरिंग कॉस्ट भी घट जाती है, ठीक है, and coordination complexity, because there is the trust factor there is ample trust there, so people can easily coordinate with each other. कोई ये नहीं बोलता नहीं मैं इसके साथ काम नहीं करूंगा, नहीं मैं उसके साथ वो काम नहीं करूंगा, नहीं मैं उसको रिपोर्ट नहीं भेजूंगा. So basically what happens in this scenario is that when there is trust factor available between people, between any particular group, so the coordination also becomes simplified, it is not that complex. आप लोगों को ये डेफिनेशन से समझ में आया? बिकॉज सी इंटरपर्सनल ट्रस्ट वैसे बाय basic funda, I think we all understand, but when you have to write answers about it, there should be a level quality of answers that you give. So just try to understand this definition that I'm trying to tell you about interpersonal trust. थोड़ा सा घुमावदार है, but it incorporates everything. ठीक है? Anybody having any trouble understanding or going ahead so far? Okay, I guess not. Chalo, theek hai, moving on. So basically, trust is not certainty. It is a calculated acceptance of uncertainty based on relational confidence, right? So if you hold a certain level of confidence between any kind of relationship between individuals, so in that case, the trust that you have, it is sort of accepting कि okay, भले ही सामने वाला थोड़ा सा laid back है अपने काम में, but eventually he or she will come through, they will follow through and they will deliver. So अगर एक तरह से ये ये स्टेटमेंट अगर मैं इसकी बात करूँ तो इसका मतलब ये कहना है कि ट्रस्ट का मतलब ये नहीं कि आप पूरा भरोसा कर रहे हो, बट आप एक कैलकुलेटेड भरोसा करते हो अनसर्टेनिटी पे। आप सर्टेनिटी पे नहीं जाते, आप अनसर्टेनिटी पे जाते हो, कैलकुलेटेड एक्सेप्टेंस लेके कि इतना कॉन्फिडेंस है मुझे इस रिलेशनशिप पे, सामने वाले के साथ प्रोफेशनल रिलेशनशिप पे, कि वट एवर ही विल डिलीवर, ही और शी विल डिलीवर will be of benefit and it will be for the greater good, for the main goal of the organization or the project that you're working on. Okay. Now, what are the core features of interpersonal trust? What features fall under interpersonal trust that make it interpersonal trust, right? First is your vulnerability, right? When you say when somebody is being vulnerable, it means that that person is, by default, trusting somebody, although there is risk involved, right? Trust inherently involves risk exposure. So whenever there is any question of risk exposure happening, that comes along with the trust, and that talks about the vulnerability. And without vulnerability, trust is irrelevant. So when you trust somebody, when you are in a group, and even when you're trusting, even for a team leader who has a team to take care of, who has assigned work, he is also assigning that work on the basis of the trust. He is trusting and hoping ki, okay, if I assign this work to so and so, they will, adhere to that timeline, and they will adhere to the quality that is expected of them, right? So that is how vulnerability works. Positive expectation, belief that the other person will not act opportunistically. Okay, in this case, one feels that ki, okay, I'm assigning a job to somebody, so he or she will not do it, will not act out of opportunity, but rather focus on the greater goal or the greater good of the project or whatever the scenario is. Okay? And another feature is of interpersonal trust is uncertainty. Okay? Trust operates in conditions where outcomes are not guaranteed. So another feature that we can talk about is the uncertainty. We can say that the trust can only thrive where there are some situations, some scenarios of uncertainty, and there is no exact outcome guaranteed. It's like, sort of gambling. You might win, you might lose. So interpersonal trust works in that way also, that when you gamble, you know that you might not, win everything. You might also lose something. You might win it all, you might lose it all, maybe, or it could be a 50-50 chance, right? So interpersonal trust also works on the feature of uncertainty. Reciprocity. This here the trust tends to be mutual and self-reinforcing. So when you talk about interpersonal trust, we are trying to say that if one individual A is trusting with the work or with whatever knowledge or information, he or she is hoping that it will be mutual in nature. If I am trusting somebody, then that person or that individual will trust me back as well. And I am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So when we talk about reciprocity, we mean that the trust has to be mutual in nature, and it has to be also self-reinforcing. That one has to keep reinforcing that act of, trusting the person. So basically, we have to trust ourselves also, and the person that we are entrusting whatever job or whatever role it is assigned to them, right? Now, what are the elements of trust? So there's a model called a Castaldo model, right? So there was this person who in 2008 he conducted a meta-analysis. Basically, he analyzed certain responses and did n number of surveys, and he provided a comprehensive definition of trust, which said that it has these three elements in them. इसके पहले हमने पढ़ा फीचर्स पढ़ा, अब हम ये कैस्टाल्डो मॉडल के हिसाब से इंटरपर्सनल ट्रस्ट को समझने की कोशिश करेंगे. ठीक है, so he has to say that interpersonal trust has three elements. First is the subject, okay? It is pertaining to one thing in particular. Then there is action or behavior, and then is your future expectation. I hope everything is good so far. I mean, you're not finding anything complicated, although it's a very basic concept that we're talking about. But thoda sa isme we have to put in a play of words and understand it at our level. I mean, the level at which we are, the paper that we are doing. I hope it's not very confusing to anybody.
No, ma'am, clear.
Okay, okay, thank you. So basically here, if we talk about the Castaldo model, यहाँ पे हम पहला वाला element cover करते हैं, which is the subject. So here it is saying that trust is context specific. It is not universal in nature, right? Trust can relate to task competence. It can also relate to your confidentiality, and it also can relate to your emotional support. So, for example, here I've given that you may trust a colleague with technical work, but not with confidential information. So, if you have a colleague, IT के जितने भी team members होते हैं, जो लोग होते हैं, you can speak to them about all the technical work. For let's say, for example, we have our softwares and everything. Sometimes we have to learn it from the IT, how to work on it, how to reinstall it, या कोई glitch आ जाता है, network bug आ जाता है, right? So when you go to them for help, you obviously they will get to see the whole layout and everything, right? But it's obvious that they will go through the software, they will try to rectify it, the biometric or anything, any kind of software whatsoever, anything technical that you're dealing with as an HR. So when you deal with something like that, it's obvious that you will rely on them for the technical know-how, but it's obvious you will not share the rest of the confidential information with them, which is there pertaining, which is there in that software itself, right? So that is where the Castaldo model comes into play, where it is saying that trust is again subject specific. जैसे यहाँ पे आप ट्रस्ट कर रहे हो उस आईटी डिपार्टमेंट के एग्जेक्टिव को या जो कोई भी है कि वो आपका सॉफ्टवेयर रेक्टिफाई कर दे या करेक्ट कर दे या जो भी इशू आ रहा है वो सब कर दे, बट यू विल नॉट rely on them with the information, with all the employee information that you hold, right? So in this case, trust becomes subject specific. Okay? It does not work throughout. It just works pertaining to certain areas, right? Now the next one becomes your action or behavior. Now the trust must be behaviorally demonstrated, right? How do you show trust to somebody? How do you show that you have faith in them, or what do you do to make sure that somebody else starts having faith in you? That happens through action or behavior, right? Now this can include your delegation, your information sharing, or your reduced supervision, right? So for example, a manager gives decision making authority to a junior employee. So when a manager does that, he is delegating some work to that junior employee, right? So obviously when he is giving some decision making, when he's delegating somebody with that decision making authority, he is also by relation to that delegation, he is also sharing information, right? So when you share some kind of information, you also make sure that you're showing some kind of trust to that person, right? आपने मतलब आपके साथ भी कभी हुआ होगा, when you come across some information you also feel कि okay, so and so, or maybe this group or this party trusts me, that is why maybe they're sharing this information with me. You get that kind of feeling inside, right? So that is how trust works in terms of action on behavior. And also when a manager gives a decision making opportunity or authority to a junior employee, he or she is reducing some level of supervision. So when you are not watched on all the time, when there's nobody hovering above you all the time, that also leads to building of trust. That is an action which shows that okay, I trust my employees and I believe that whatever work I assign to them, they will do it without my extreme supervision. ठीक है? So far, so good, I hope. Future expectation. Now, trust also includes your predictive judgment. When you try to trust, when you try to work on your interpersonal trust, it happens. It's not just subject specific. It's not just action oriented, but it is also based on your future and your expectation of what you might do. That is with again reference to कि आपने past में क्या किया है. And how is that future expectation built? It is built through your past consistency. Is it built? It's built through your reputation. It's built through your track record. So यहाँ पे हम ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि when you are talking about trust, interpersonal trust, you can also think of it as that कि you are trusting somebody with the hope in mind कि there will be future expectations also, right? You are hoping कि okay, if I continue to trust an employee with so and so, or maybe when I try to when I entrust a group of people with some workload, I'm hoping that they will deliver it in future. And how do you do that? When do you tend to do that? That is if you've seen their past track record, you've heard of their reputation so far, and you know that they're regular people. They're regular, and they are people who do their work diligently and they do it on time. For example, here an employee consistently meets deadline, so the manager expects reliability in future tasks as well. ठीक है, तो इससे हमारे को ये फ्यूचर एक्सपेक्टेशन वाला फंडा भी समझ में आया, राइट? नाउ दिस कास्टेल्डो मॉडल दैट आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट, आप लोगों ने अभी ये तीनों एस्पेक्ट समझे? वुड एनी ऑफ यू लाइक टू शेयर एनी एग्जांपल पर्टेनिंग टू दिस, ताकि मुझे भी समझ में आए कि आप लोग ने कितना समझा? Anybody there who wants to share what they've understood from the Castaldo model? Yes, guys. Anybody?
मैम सब्जेक्ट के अंदर इमोशनल सपोर्ट आ सकता है ना?
हाँ, इमोशनल सपोर्ट आ सकता है, बट वो थोड़ा सा ना इट इज समथिंग पर्टेनिंग टू द टॉपिक, और मे बी पर्टेनिंग टू द थीम, कि किस बेसिस पे आप किसी को किस चीज के लिए ट्रस्ट कर रहे हो. ये तीन उसके एस्पेक्ट्स हो गए, बट ये तीनों एक तरह से इंटर रिलेटेड नहीं है, अनरिलेटेड है. तो हम अगर सब्जेक्ट की बात करें तो हम यहाँ पे ये कहना चाह रहे हैं कि जो मैंने एग्जांपल दिया था कि आप किसी आईटी वाले बंदे को आप अपना सॉफ्टवेयर दिखाओगे, बीइंग एन एचआर, यू ऑलवेज हैव अ लॉट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, राइट? सो यू विल नॉट बी शेयरिंग दैट इंफॉर्मेशन विद देम, राइट? यू विल बी रादर ओनली गिविंग अप दैट मच एरिया टू वर्क ऑन, जिससे वो प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व हो सके. तो इस केस में वो सब्जेक्ट वाला आता है.
मैम किसी भी एम्प्लॉय का हम पास्ट वर्क देख के फ्यूचर के लिए उस पे ट्रस्ट कर सकते हैं कि वो आगे भी मतलब अच्छा करेगा.
हाँ, फ्यूचर एक्सपेक्टेशन एलिमेंट जो है कैस्टेल्डो मॉडल के हिसाब से उसका यही मतलब होता है. हाँ, आप इसमें मुझे आप मतलब आप क्या इसमें क्या और क्या कहना चाह रहे हो, आप बताओ दीपू. हाँ जी. बेसिकली इसमें मैं इसका मतलब बस यही है कि हम जब भी किसी पे रिलाय करते हैं, ट्रस्ट करते हैं या भरोसा करते हैं, हम ये देख के करते हैं कि बिकॉज बंदे का पास्ट रिकॉर्ड अच्छा रहा है, वो इंसान कंसिस्टेंट रहा है, तो हम इस उम्मीद में रिलाय करते हैं कि आगे भी चल के वो यही चीज सेम अपनी हैबिट या सेम टेंडेंसी या सेम पैटर्न मेंटेन करके रखेगा. और कोई किसी को कुछ ऐड ऑन करना है या कुछ कहना है? हम्म.
नो मैडम.
ओके. ओके. Okay, fine. So this was about the three elements of Castaldo model. ठीक है? Now let's talk about trust and distrust. Mistrust को भी छोड़ देते हैं. Okay, this is very basic overview. When you trust somebody, there is a sense of positive expectation. Okay, it is constructive in nature, right? And when you distrust somebody, or when you do not rely on somebody, it leads to negative expectation, and it also becomes very defensive in nature, right? जब ट्रस्ट फैक्टर मिसिंग हो जाता है तब आप डिफेंसिव हो जाते हो, आप खुद को बचाने में लग जाते हो. You start wondering that how do I make sure that so and so individual does not break my trust at a professional level, that I do not get fooled by this person again. So that's where the distrust factor comes in. Okay. Now let's talk about the aspects of interpersonal trust. See, there are two parts of it. First is your trustworthiness, and second is your propensity to trust, right? So when we talk about trustworthiness, the trustworthiness aspect of interpersonal trust, यहाँ पे कहने का मतलब है it is others oriented. Basically, when you're trusting, you are perceiving the qualities of the trusty, right? You are trying to understand. मतलब जिस पे आप भरोसा करते हो वो होता है trusty, और जो भरोसा करता है वो होता है trusted. ठीक है? So when you talk about the trustee जिस पे आप भरोसा कर रहे हो, whoever you are relying upon, you always check on the qualities of their ability, right? You try to see how competent they are. You try to check on their intentions. Is it benevolent? Benevolent matlab, is it in good terms, or is it it is positively enforced, right? And you also trust on their integrity. You try to rely ki, okay, whoever the trustee is, whoever I'm entrusting with this work, or whoever I'm entrusting with has these qualities, has good values, will finish the work on time, or maybe a group in general. You feel that this group has that capability, it has that intention to work, and it has that kind of integrity to work on, right? Now this kind of model is also known as your ABI model of trust. So the first aspect of the interpersonal trust is your trustworthiness, which is basically based on others, that how you perceive them, right? Then your second one comes to be propensity to trust, which is self-oriented. It basically refers to one's own tendency to trust others. How often do we trust others? And how is that influenced? That is influenced by our own personality, that is influenced by our own past experiences, through our own cultural background. For example, an employee with prior betrayal may show low propensity to trust. So when we talk about propensity, it basically means the tendency to trust on somebody, how much we can trust a person, right? So when one does that, when we talk about the propensity to trust, it is based on our aspect, it is based on us. And there are often instances where when you've been, वो कहते हैं ना एक कहावत है, once bitten twice shy. So once you've been already betrayed, you tend to trust lesser on other people, professionally speaking, right? And how does that propensity develop, or how does that tendency develop? It all depends on what kind of personality you hold, what kind of experiences you've had in the past, and what kind of cultural background you come from. So these things also affect the aspect of interpersonal trust. Okay, so I believe I'll keep it till here, right? And I will start with the rest of the chapter in the next class, where we'll talk about the basis, the domain, and the framework and everything, right? Okay, until then, you have your study material. Just go through that. Okay, and I'll try to share lesson 2 as well. And as discussed, Aditi, I will try to do some caseworks also, case studies also in the next class probably. And it will be basically pertaining to chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'll try to do that around the time of 8:30. We'll take half an hour for it. And rest of the 1.5 hours, we'll try covering the rest of the chapter. Just go through the study material that you have, I believe. आप सबके पास होगा. Go through that and try making something out of it, try understanding it. कोई doubt हो, कोई query हो, please feel free to get in touch with me. My email ID I've already given out to you guys. Okay. Anything else anybody wants to add for this class, or anybody wants to say anything?
मैडम अभी तक तो सब कुछ ठीक चल रहा है, अंडरस्टैंडिंग हो रहा है आपकी
Okay.
क्वेरीज।
चलिए, let's
मैम
hope.
ऑफलाइन क्लासेस
हाँ जी, sorry, I didn't get you. Yes, Aditi?
मैम ऑफलाइन क्लासेस भी आप ही लेते हो?
हाँ, ऑफलाइन भी मैं ही लेती हूँ। ऑफलाइन भी मैं ही लेती हूँ। मैंने ली है, मतलब अभी पिछले 1-2 हफ्तों से तो 2-3 हफ्तों से ऑनलाइन ही हो रही है, बट ऑफलाइन भी ली है मैंने। ठीक है, I hope you guys will have that trust on me, and I hope we get through this and we're able to finish our syllabus, right? So if you talk about interpersonal trust, it works here also, that you guys are relying on me to, make sure that I am able to deliver this subject and you guys are able to understand it. Okay? Chalo, for now, I'll end it here. I'll end the session here, and I'll meet you guys next time. Hopefully it's either of the form, online, offline, jo bhi hoga. We'll meet there. Okay. And until then, if you guys have any queries or anything you want to share, please mail it to me. Right?
थैंक यू।
ओके
Okay. Thank you so much. Good night. Take care of yourself. Okay.
हाँ
And
मैम
have a
थैंक यू मैम
week. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.